Hello there, and welcome to this Astranti pre-scene analysis video. My name is Jordan and I will be guiding you through this pre-scene for the management case study exam for the May and August 2021 exam sitting. Now, in this pre-scene, we are actually dealing with a company called Trayyner, who are also, funnily enough, a training provider. Now, before we go any further, I feel an introduction is in order. My name is Jordan and I work on the content creation team at Astranti. Now, part of my role is to prepare materials for the MCS exam. This will include our pre-scene analysis series of videos, the production of our industry analysis of the pre-scene company, and I'm also heavily involved in the writing of the mocks that we produce for the MCS exam. Besides the case study itself, I am also one of the CIMA tutors here at Astranti, where I produce a range of content from the objective test mocks through to the study text and learning videos. Now, how does this video series work? Well, we'll start by going through the pre-scene section by section, breaking it down as we go along. We will only cover a couple of pages in the pre-scene each video so that you can pace yourself through the document. First, we're going to be looking at the key points of the pre-scene analysis. Now, this will include the operations of the pre-scene company, so if it's a manufacturer's manufacturing process, for example, how it serves its customers, who are its customers, and what its financial position and performance is, as well as its organizational structure, to name but a few of these key points that we're going to be looking at. Alongside this, we're going to be looking at providing a wider industry analysis and show you how this relates to our pre-scene company. And for the industry analysis more specifically, we have a separate video that covers the finer points of the wider industry in more detail. Now, it is important that in your exam you demonstrate your industry knowledge and awareness when answering your questions, as that is what the examiners are also looking for alongside your ability to answer the question. To aid our analysis, we'll also be using some business models that seem relevant. So, for example, we may use PESTLE, SWOT, or Porter's 5 Forces to give some generic analysis of the business. Now, perhaps the most important part of this video series is to raise the most likely exam issues from the pre-scene document. So this analysis is designed to refine your knowledge of the pre-scene company and the wider industry, but we also want to connect this information to the relevant topics that you have learned in your CIMA studies and these topics that you will obviously be examined on. And to supplement this, I may give some exam hints or tips that are based on past experience on how CIMA have assessed certain topics in the past. Once we've covered the pre-scene analysis, we'll move on to the strategic analysis. Now, in this video, we use something called the rational planning model. Now, don't worry if you haven't heard of it before. It is generally something that is introduced at the higher levels of the CIMA qualification. Nevertheless, it is a very useful tool for us to use when conducting a strategic analysis of our pre-scene company. Now, using the strategic analysis, we can attempt to figure out what the current position of the company is, where it plans to go, and how it intends to get there. So the purpose of this in the exam is so that you have a broader understanding of what the pre-scene company's strategic goals are, which will allow you to frame your answers in a way that makes strategic sense for the company. And lastly, we will round off this video series with a top 10 issues video. Now, this might seem self-explanatory, but it's basically me going through and picking out the top 10 issues that I think are relevant to this pre-scene company. And we do this because there's a lot of material to cover at this level of the qualification, so we hope this top 10 video will help direct your revision and narrow your focus on the theory that is most important for this pre-scene company. As for how this analysis specifically works, again, I'll be going through the pre-scene section by section, but I'll also be assuming there is no prior knowledge of the pre-scene. So we will be building up our knowledge of the pre-scene together, starting from 0, working all the way up to 100. Obviously, if you have already read the pre-scene, then you may need to be patient for the first couple videos as we build up our knowledge of the pre-scene company. And we recommend that you are active in your learning and that you take notes of the pre-scene alongside our analysis. So you could read the section of the pre-scene covered in the video prior to watching it so that you can compare your notes to ours. Now, this will mean that you may have some different points. Maybe you will find issues that are not addressed in the video itself, but that is completely fine. That is the whole point of this process. The point is that together, we can try and identify as many points as possible and help substantiate your own analysis of the pre-scene. Then once we've finished our pre-scene analysis, as already mentioned, we will go through the full strategic analysis and the top 10 issues. Just to finish off then with some notes to consider on the pre-scene itself. For starters, the pre-scene is released by CIMA to give you context on the pre-scene company you are going to be examined on. So CIMA's aim is to test the content of the pre-scene in the exam. This means we can make some educated guesses about what may come up in the exam. Emphasis on the may, there's no guarantee. So the inclusion of particular items within the pre-scene could indicate that CIMA intends to actually test you on that particular bit of content in the exam, and I'll do my best to point out these to you as we go through the pre-scene. However, I will say this, and I urge that you take this to heart. Do not pre-write anything based on the pre-scene alone. This is because in the exam you will be given a range of scenarios that you will have to respond to specifically. These unseen scenarios will include information that is not in the pre-scene. So if you go into the exam with a pre-written answer based solely on the pre-scene, you are likely to end up writing answers that do not answer the question posed in the exam. And if you do not answer the question, you will not be rewarded for your efforts. Instead, you should use the content that we're providing here to give you a background on the various topics to make it easier for you to adapt and respond to the unseen issues more effectively. So as some final points, do use the pre-scene and make recommendations that are consistent with your analysis, but make sure you answer the question and make sure you address the unseen issues in the question directly and organically. Right, with introductions out of the way, let's begin. Now, in this video series, we're going to split it into multiple parts. In this video, we're going to look at firstly your role in the business, who you're going to play as, role play as in your exam, and then we're also going to go over the executive training industry, as it's important to have context for the type of industry that this business exists in. Looking at page 2 then, what you'll find is probably one of the most important pages in the actual pre-scene, because it tells you what it is you're going to be responsible for, what role you have to play in the exam. And you have to make sure you get this right if you want your exam answer to gain the most marks possible. So let's take a look at the context we're dealing with here. So we're told that Trayyner is an unquoted company that offers executive training courses, and the company is based in the capital city of Northland, but it offers courses at several international locations. Following on, we're then also told that Northland is a developed country with a high standard of living, that the country has an excellent higher education system with relatively high proportions of the population holding an undergraduate or postgraduate degree. So at the beginning, we're told that we're dealing with an unquoted company. That's what Trayyner is. Well, that raises the question of raising finance, which is our F2 topic. Now, as an unquoted company, it does have the route of an initial public offering that it could take. It could become publicly listed and raise a considerable amount of finance that way. And that could be an unseen question you're given, and you have to weigh up the benefits and disadvantages of doing that. We're also told that because it operates in several international locations, well, that means we have to consider IAS 21 foreign exchange, which is our financial standard, and you might have to explain the consequences of this standard, the consequences of operating in several locations, and what that means for the company's financial statements. Then as for the second paragraph, we're dealing with a developed country. This is looking at the demographics of Northland. So one thing to perhaps consider using is, of course, the PESTLE analysis tool. Give you an idea of the social business environment outside of Trayyner. And the reason why you might want to do this is because it's important to understand, especially for E2, the ecosystem participants, who is involved in the ecosystem, how they can benefit the business. And with a developed country like Northland, that of course might mean what kind of employees you can find. A highly trained labor pool is going to be useful for a training company that is looking for people to teach others. There's of course also the pricing. If Trayyner primarily operates in Northland, then it has to consider its pricing strategy carefully, because it's obviously selling to a more affluent and highly educated population. And then lastly, we have managing people, which is our E2 topic, and the question of motivation might come up. Because you're dealing with a high standard of living, people with a high education, then your labour pool will not be incentivized or unlikely to be incentivized by monetary rewards. So you have to consider other ways of motivating them. That's what you as a manager trainer might have to consider. On to the next paragraph. We're then given some financial information about Northland. We're told that its currency is in the N dollars. Note that we haven't been given an exchange rate, so something to bear in mind. Looking at the third paragraph then, we're given some financial information about Northland. We're told that its currency is in the N dollar. Note that we haven't been given any exchange rate information, so it's something to bear in mind as we go through the pre-scene. And Northlandian company law requires companies to prepare their financial statements in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, or otherwise known as IFRS. Since we have to comply with IFRS, that means that we have to know the different financial standards we might be assessed upon. So in F2, the various topics will include things like ratio analysis, IAS 37, which is of course on provisions and contingencies, IFRS 15 on revenue, 16 on leases, and then of course we've got segmental analysis as well to cap that all off. So by no means a comprehensive list, but obviously since we're dealing with IFRS, it means that these topics have a decent likelihood of being assessed upon. So that's the context of Trayyner. So what about you? What's your role at the company for this exam? We're told that you are going to be a financial manager at Trayyner's head office and that your primary responsibilities are associated with management accounting and that you report to Jenkins, the senior financial manager who reports to the finance director. So this bit is actually quite important for such a small paragraph. You have to make sure you answer your question as if you were the financial manager at Trayyner, otherwise your answer won't be graded as high as it could. So what do we mean by that more specifically? Well, if we look at this hierarchy I've put together on screen, you can see that you are the financial manager, you're below the senior financial manager of Jenkins. So what does that mean for you? It means that you're there to implement senior management decisions. You're there to explain the accounting implications of strategic decisions. Those are just one of many roles you might have. So the important thing is that you're not there to come up with strategy for the company. You're there to research and implement and possibly explain things for your superiors. So it's important that that comes across in your answer. And you only provide strategic advice if you've been asked to in the question, if you've been asked for recommendations on what to do. So the big takeaway really is make sure you have this in mind while you're answering a question, but also make sure you answer what the question is asking you to do as well, as that can give you some guidance. And then lastly, what you see on the right is the spread of core activities, their weighting, and the likely topics that come up in each one. So weighting wise, all of them are equal to each other, but in terms of topics, well, there is clearly a dominance of P2 topics across all the core activities. That has the potential of coming up in each one. But obviously you do have a fair number of F2 and E2 topics that come up. So you may want to consider balancing your vision around certain topics in those areas that you're unsure of. But naturally, it's a pretty even spread either way. So bear that in mind during your revision. Okay, now with that all done, let's actually look at the first major bit of this pre-scene, which is about the executive training industry itself. Now, while I've got your attention at the end of this video, I'd like to make you aware of the other products that Astranti sell as part of the case study course. So the first of these is a series of study text and tuition videos, and these come in two flavors. You have our written study text if you prefer learning through reading, or you can watch our videos if you're more of a visual learner. Now to start with, we have an exam technique study series which breaks down how to succeed at various case study levels. We'll be looking at exam technique, writing style and planning that you need to nail to be successful in your case study exams. And to accompany this, we also have a revision series dedicated to the theory side of things. This is because at the case study level there is a large amount of theory you need to be capable of using in your case study exam. So what we've done here is we've taken the key areas of the theory from the 3 case study levels and condensed them into a series of chapters to help focus your revision. Moving away from the more generic products and onto the products that are specific to the case study pre-scene, the first of these is the pre-scene analysis video series. First and foremost, this contains a series of videos where we break down the relevant pre-scene at the appropriate level of the qualification, page by page. And throughout this video, we bring out all the key points that could be relevant for you in your exam, looking at various topics and things you might need to consider when revising for the case study. And then to supplement the pre-scene analysis, we also have two videos. We have the strategic analysis where we give a broad overview of what kind of strategy the pre-scene company is using and where it might be going in the future. And then we also look at the top 10 issues that we think this pre-scene company might be subject to and something that you may need to take into consideration when revising for the case study. We then provide an industry analysis document and accompanying video. CIMA like to see you demonstrate wider industry knowledge in your exam, and this is what this industry analysis does, as it gives you the wider industry knowledge you need in order to fulfill this requirement. Essentially what it is, it's a large document that we've compiled on all the relevant industry information that we have gathered so that you don't have to do the revision yourself. And then to accompany this, we of course have a video that goes over this document to pick out some of the key points for you if you prefer that. We also produce a number of mock exams for every sitting. We write 5 mock exams for the first exam sitting, and then we add 2 more supplementary mocks for the second exam sitting. We design these mocks around the specific issues relevant to the pre-scene and make them as close to the real thing as you will see in the case study exam as possible. So these are a great way to practice your exam technique and test your knowledge of the pre-scene company under timed conditions. And then to add value to this product, we also offer a marking and feedback service. So we have a range of highly skilled finance professionals working as freelance staff for us, and it is these staff that provide the marking and feedback service. So this is a great service to use in conjunction with our mock exams, as it gives you a great idea of how you're progressing in the areas you need to work on for your case study exam. And then if you're in need of extra exam practice, we also provide a more generic question pack product. So obviously there are only so many questions you could write about on a specific pre-scene. So what this question pack is a series of generic questions on generic scenarios that we come up with at Astranti, whereby we look to test specific topics that come up regularly in the case study exam. So if there is a particular topic you are struggling with and we've only tested once in our mocks, and you'd like more practice on it, then these question packs will be a great product for you to turn to. The penultimate product on this list is a product for those of you who would like to get a full overriding picture in terms of your revision all at once, and these are our masterclasses. So these are our expert tutors who hold 2 masterclasses every exam sitting, and these essentially cover all key aspects that you're going to need to know for your relevant exams. So from particular theories to analyses of the pre-scene, all the way through to tips and tricks you can use in your exam. And finally, such is the confidence we have in the quality of our product that if you do purchase a full course from us and you unfortunately do not pass your exam using our product, then we will offer what we call a pass guarantee. So if you did not pass your exam after purchasing our full course, then you will receive the materials for the next exam sitting free of charge. Okay, thank you very much for listening to that. I hope you find our products useful, and of course I would like to wish you the best of luck in your exam from everyone at Astranti.